Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you guys are. This is our 45th episode of Sports Goofs. We lower down that football music in the background. This is Francisco, joined by Andrew, Charles, and then a couple of special guests for today. And most shows, I'm usually taking the lead of the program, but this is our college football postseason extravaganza. So I will defer to our college football guru, Andrew. So please, Andrew, go ahead, take the lead. Grab the reins.
Thank you, Francisco. First off, before we get started, I want to introduce our special guests. We have JD and Lucas from RCFB.
Salutations. Hey, what's up, guys?
They are presently somewhere in Texas. I don't want to give away their exact location, unless you're comfortable with that.
No, we're in a secret lair somewhere in the great state of Texas. It's a big old state. Good luck finding us. You can't prove where we are, neither can the government.
All right, so I'm going to split hairs here. The regular season isn't technically over.
Oh, that's right.
Because we have the annual Army-Navy game coming up. Is that still out in... Is that
Philly.
Still out in Baltimore?
I think it's in Philly.
Lincoln Financial Field.
Yeah. Home of an Eagles team that barely beat the New York Giants yesterday. But that's a different story. Anyways, sorry, Andrew.
I guess I'll just real quick. What do you guys think about that game? I know this is kind of off the cuff, but do you have any expectations for that one?
For Army-Navy?
Yeah, I'll start with
Francisco,
and then...
I have no perspective whatsoever. I thought you were going to talk about the New York Giants and the Eagles, but sorry, go ahead.
They suck. I don't care about that.
That's a good assessment, actually.
How about you guys, JD and Lucas?
All triple option teams are beautiful and should be respected as such. Let us all support the troops this upcoming Saturday by watching some beautiful pitches, throws, and backwards passes. I'm so excited for this game. I love pullback dives. I love seeing slot backs do things in such a college football way, because you never get to see this in any other form of football whatsoever. It's so unique to these two service academies. It's so unique to the history of this sport. I love the Army-Navy game so unabashedly. I'm going to take Navy by 4 here for this year, only because they've got little things. They're doing the little things a little bit better this year. I was surprised to see Jeff Monken's team to give up fumbles, to give up poor blocking schemes. This is not the Jeff Monken team that I'm accustomed to seeing. So I think everybody with Navy is going to pull it out on this one. I'm going to give them by 4.
There's not a lot I can add to that. That was a perfect answer, summarizing kind of what the service academies are up to and what they've been historically for the sport. I definitely have Navy as well, but at the end of the day, you just got to be able to sit there and bask in the wonder that is just service academy football.
And I don't know the weather forecast, but hey, BU, good to see you. To think those graphics were once state of the art. He's talking about
now, according to the big old internet, we've got a high of 57, low of 42, 70% chance of rain.
Ooh, that's going to be... Ugh. All right, so let me see. Okay, so I'm looking at the Commander-in-Chief trophy here right now, or how it went this season. So, for anyone that doesn't know, the Commander-in-Chief trophy is played for every year between the 3 FBS service academies, which are Air Force, Army West Point, and Navy. So right now, Air Force the other two have played each other. So we've got Navy beat Air Force earlier in the season, and Air Force beat Army. So if Navy wins this, they're going to take the Commander-in-Chief trophy, which has gone to Army for the past 2 seasons. So it'll be interesting. But here's the other thing, though. Navy had won, I forget, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. They had won 14 straight against Army dating back to 2002, just in the Army-Navy game. But then Army has won 3 straight. So it'll be interesting to see if they can break that streak. And by doing so, they would take the Commander-in-Chief trophy for the first time since 2015. So that's just a quick discussion about the Commander-in-Chief trophy, because that's the last regular season game. Now, let's move on to kind of a quick wrap-up of the entire college football season. It's been pretty hectic. Definitely not 2007 hectic. If anyone wants to know a bit more about that, there's a YouTuber, Karsten the Oracle, KTO, that did a pretty nice breakdown of the 2007 season, which, just in summary, that's the year that Appalachian State, which was FCS at the time, defeated Michigan, who was ranked number 5. South Florida was ranked 2nd in the country at one point before they completely fell off the table and just completely sucked for the rest of the year. That was kind of the cream of the crop when it comes to chaos, Team Meteor, whatever you want to call it. This one was sort of decent, I guess. What would J.D. Lucas, what would you say about the craziness?
I mean, number one, there's not even anything remotely close to 2007, and nothing even crazy that really happened this year, all things considering. Normally we see what the folks at SB Nation have established as Blood Week, where we see a bunch of top 10 teams fall in the same week. If you remember a couple of years ago, a key example of this, to which one I know Lucas is very familiar with, you go to 2017, that was a week where you had no top 10 teams playing any ranked opponents. Nobody of significant note. Lucas, do you recall what the Iowa Hawkeyes did to Michigan in the same week that Pitt ended up beating Clemson, I believe it was, and a couple of other upsets?
I do. That was near and dear to my heart because as a Hawkeye that bleeds black and gold, it was fantastic to watch our dismantling of them. Basically the thing to take away from that, at least from the Hawkeyes, is never come into Kinnick at night if you were ranked in the top 10. And who else lost that week? I mean, so Clemson lost to Pitt. That was a really close game, though. Iowa beating Michigan was, I think, on a field goal.
Yes, it was. But the point of all that to say, though, is you normally see a huge blood week like that happen at least once a year. We didn't really see that happen at all this year. We only saw a couple games where a 1 or a 2 would go down. We definitely saw a great continuation of, nobody saw South Carolina beating Georgia. Nobody saw Illinois beating Wisconsin.
But those were one-offs.
Exactly.
Every other game that week was just kind of like it happened on paper, or like there were a few that were like close calls, but it was certainly, like you said, nothing like 2007. 2007 was the chaos gods coming in, and it was blood for the blood gods.
Correct.
But this year is like we've kind of already established, it was one off, maybe 2 off. I'm sure there was one week where there was a good ranked opponent that maybe had not lost yet. So a couple weeks ago, Iowa beat Minnesota when they were ranked number 8. I want to say there was another big upset that day, but for some reason I cannot think of it off the top of my head. Although and that's really one on paper. If we're really going to be pedantic about that, and looking at it through the hindsight 2020, Minnesota probably didn't deserve to be in the number 8 spot, but that was still a ranked team losing in a fairly large upset because Iowa was, I think, I want to say high teens, low 20s during that game.
So, but needless to say, though, when it comes to chaos, this was a very straightforward year, kind of like how we had a very straightforward year last year. One of the things for me is we've seen chaos happen before in the last couple of years. As we've mentioned earlier in the weeks, as we mentioned earlier, we've seen a lot more upsets in the past. We got a couple of one-offs this year, but if you look at the big full scheme of things, this is one of the cleanest ways that the playoff and the New Year's Six has broken ever in the history of the college football playoff. This is a year where you had a very clear top four. You had a very clear pairing for each individual bowl games. There was no drama or speculation as to where people were going to go, how rankings were going to end up. We didn't see any of that happen this year. So for me, when I think of was this a chaotic year? No, not particularly. I think there's a lot of fun and a lot of schadenfreude, especially with Michigan. We can talk about bowls here.
Bama. A lot of schadenfreude with Bama.
Correct. But I'm just saying, we can get into bowls in just a moment. But when it comes to chaos itself, I'm not as convinced that we saw as a chaotic season as we've seen in the past. I don't think it's even necessarily that disordered from what we've seen this season. We still have a lot of blue bloods at the top. We still have a lot of high-ranking recruit classes that have played into huge roles to people who are in the top 10. In the top 10 itself, we're really only looking at Baylor and Utah really as the only two surprises that ended up in the top 10 at the end of the regular season. But that is not needless to say, though, that we had a lot of fun watching this season. There's a lot of entertaining storylines, and I'm sure that we can talk about all of that. But I'm very excited to talk about this postseason coming up and some of the surprises that we've even had in the coaching carousel will come up.
I'm sorry. As a very quick add-on to that, adding on to your comment about Baylor and Utah being kind of surprises, I would actually argue that Utah isn't necessarily a surprise near as much as Baylor is. If you remember, Baylor 2 years ago was, I want to say, like 1-11. Like, they had a horrific season a couple of years ago, and Matt Rule has just turned around that program in 2 years. And he's got, I don't know if you guys watched the Big 12 championship, but they've got that Zeno kid who's a true freshman and was throwing bombs down the field. Baylor is a huge surprise, and I think way more so than Utah.
Yeah, for just to touch on that and expand on it. So Oklahoma and Baylor were in the Big 12 championship this season, and everyone thought that Oklahoma was just going to be, maybe not run away with it, but make a decisive victory. And they were initially, but then Baylor came storming back thanks to that true freshman because their normal starter got injured, and they ended up taking it to overtime. But ultimately, Oklahoma prevailed, and that got them into the top four for the college football playoff. So, I guess we'll discuss the coaching carousel, because that's, I mean. And again, this is my first year sort of really being in tune to college football as a whole, mainly because I became a mod, so I've had to watch more games, pay attention to more things, as opposed to being kind of insulated in UCF. Actually, speaking of UCF, let me talk about the rankings really quick. Quick question for you guys. So, I noticed this year there were a lot more group of 5 teams that ended up being in the rankings and got up pretty high. So I guess my question is, do you think that's a residual effect of UCF's winning streak, that the group of 5 got a little bit more respect from not just the CFP committee, but also the AP and the coaches?
I'll start here. I really think that it's not to poo-poo UCF's success, because they're certainly one of the more relevant examples of a team that could be argued that they had a legitimate shot to be going to the CFP last year. But this has, I think, been a long time coming, and something that I'm really, really happy to see is just G5 teams that are getting a lot more respect. And I mean, it's one of those things where you kind of have to look at it and realize that, I mean, these teams have kind of been, there, but, only slightly in the spotlight for a while. I mean, we've all known of Boise State, Appalachian State, UCF maybe not so much, but SMU from the 80s. These are not no-name programs who are suddenly coming into light. But I mean, I get what you mean in that they're finally getting potentially the recognition that they deserve and being able to, for lack of a better term, think that they can play with the big boys, right? Although you could probably argue that a very high-ranked UCF could probably beat a middle tier SEC Pac-12 team. Put last year's UCF up against literally Auburn, right? So maybe a fairly high up SEC team. They could probably take out at least half of the Big Ten. Would they be able to contend with your Michigans and Ohio States? That's a good question. But the fact that they can, the litmus test of them being able to take on Auburn is a pretty good indicator that the respect needs to be given to those smaller programs. And I really like actually seeing a lot more of those. So if you remember, a couple of years ago, Western Michigan came out of nowhere and played Wisconsin in the Cotton Bowl, I think it was, right? So, that was another example of a G5 team, a MAC team, for that matter, coming out of nowhere and getting respected enough to play in a New Year's Six bowl.
They got blown out, of course, but still.
Sure. But if we're going to talk blowouts, that's something that any team can do. There was a couple of years ago where I think it was it Ohio State it was Michigan State who got blanked by Alabama in the CFP, right? So you have your number 4 team gets blanked by the number 1 team. So being able to get steamrolled, I don't think is necessarily indicative of, that's not mutually exclusive to your G5 programs. Any team can get beat by a better team. The question is still out, or the jury is still out there on whether our top G5 programs can contend with the top P5 programs. And I think we're starting to see better examples of that being a very real possibility. The only thing that I'm kind of worried about is there seems to be a massive swath between your top level P5 programs and maybe your I don't want to say bottom dwellers, but teams like Rutgers and Vanderbilt, Wake Forest, not Wake Forest this year, of course, but you kind of get where I'm coming from. Whereas those teams, would those teams be able to defeat Texas State or La Tech or the G5 programs that typically aren't thought of as being able to contend with that really are kind of the no-name guys, right? The average fan has probably heard of UNLV, but if you were to ask them if they've ever played UNLV or if they've ever been, if anybody who's maybe not a huge college football fan has ever heard of them, it's a possible no. But have they heard of, Arizona or even Vanderbilt or, some of those smaller schools that I talked about?
Mm. Gotcha. Well, like I said, I agree. I'm glad that the G5s are getting a bit more attention and love because I know everyone says, oh, they're weaker schools, things like that, but they still deserve, they're FBS for a reason. They're still good teams. Francisco, Charles, anything to add?
Yeah, just on the whole thing, it's interesting because I guess this kind of segues into a few of the stuff that we talked about because it was mentioned about you don't know, what was this said? You don't know who the best team is because some better teams get beat by the other teams, or the best teams, please forgive me for paraphrasing inappropriately, but we talked about in the past because, Andrew is a diehard UCF fan. I always make the joke, but in all seriousness, it is a legitimate program coming in, and I remember last year when they were going undefeated and they weren't recognized, they themselves recognized as being the champs, but my question leading to an example like that, or to teams that you did not expect to have a good season, such as Utah and a few others, Baylor, do you think this causes a need to either take weird conferences, and I say weird because not that it's weird, but not conferences that a lot of what I feel that the college football playoff committee considers strong, Pac-12, AAC, USA conference, even SMU themselves, I forgot what conference they're in. Do you think it's time to find an incorporation with them in the playoff committee, by obviously if you're not going to give them the 1 through 4s, but possibly through the expansion of a 5, 6, 7 to 8. Because I do feel that there's a lot of good teams that have built strong players with strong coaching and good recruiting, understanding what talent is, understanding that you can win games and win 10, 11 games a season with 4-star recruits or even 3-star recruits if you coach them well. So I want to hear your guys' opinion on it, because what everybody always tells me, and was the same complaint I had back in the day when they're like, oh, let the computer do its thing before they had the playoff committee, was that, well, the top 4 that you usually see, which are usually who? Bama, Ohio State, LSU to some degree, Oklahoma, is like they've already built the best teams. Part of it might be because they know how to get the right prospects. Part of it because they build a style and a team that's ready for the pro offense, and not pro offense, but going into the pros themselves. So I'm just curious to see what your guys' opinion on it, what the inclusion of lesser known teams might be in a broadened top 6, top 8 playoff system.
So I always go back and forth on a idea or possibility like this. The first one is in the history of college football, the idea of a championship period is still a very new idea. We're only about 22 years into actually having a national championship game that actually dictates who actually is a quote-unquote unanimous champion. If you look back to any game before 1997 where Nebraska and Michigan splitting the title, it's kind of like the emphasis that actually turned into what we then called the BCS, the Bowl Alliance, everything that goes along with that. You go back all the way back to even the 1980s, you've got games where after Thanksgiving, they're crowning a national champion. Bowl games, as we know them today, there's a lot of complaints of, oh, we've got too many bowl games, or, oh, these games don't matter too much. No, the bottom line is a lot of these games were exhibitions that were literally just excuses for teams either in Big Ten country or in SEC country to go to Florida, to go to California, to go to Texas, or to somewhere to go for a holiday vacation. A lot of these teams didn't even make it that huge of a deal to go to a game, to go win that bowl game, or anything else. They wanted the excuse to be able to go out to California. If you're an Ohio State fan or a Michigan fan or an Iowa fan in the 1950s, you just wanted an excuse to go down to sunny California or to sunny Miami or somewhere else like that, where you could actually go spend some time during the holidays. So given the fact that we're already expanded out to 4, this is already dramatically so much better than what we've had in the past. As far as expanding it, I still go back and forth. I have a very controversial opinion that I believe that the committee has actually gotten it right all 4 or for every 4 seating pairs since they've actually started in 2014. And the simple fact of the matter is when you have a gigantic web of teams, conferences, and alliances, like you do in college football. We just do FBS alone, not even counting all your FCS, all your Division II, all your Division III, all your NAIA, all your JUCOs. When you have just FBS alone, you're looking at more than 130 teams. No matter what happens, you are not going to have a good, happy system that's going to make everybody feel like they're exceptionally okay with it. I think personally 4 is a great number. I think it's the number that works, and I think it's the number that includes everybody that needs to get in. I don't think there's a whole lot of arguments where if you look over the past, let's see, we are now, this is year number 6, I believe, with the playoff system, because we got 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19.
Yes.
So out of those 6 years, who can you make an argument for that would have won a national championship from the 4 that were not already included? I think your only arguments are maybe asterisk the undefeated UCF team, 2014 TCU. And outside of that, it's hard to argue like who in those 4 that were not included would have won a national championship to begin with. I think 4 is a perfectly fine number. I think it gets the people who need to be into the room. And I think for better for worse, it is a substantially better system than we've had in the past, and I'm not fully convinced that expanding out beyond 4 gives somebody an advantage. Like, let's also look at a possibility of this. We'll play to the audience specifically. A UCF can definitely win a one-off against the Power 5 if you give them a month to prepare, a month to advance, a month to get ready for this game. We saw this with TCU in the Rose Bowl in 2010. We saw this with Boise State several times in the mid-2000s. We saw this with Utah in 2004 when they played in the Sugar Bowl. You can win as a G5 over a Power 5 in a bowl. You can absolutely do that. Let's say we expand to 8, though, and we have the automatic G5 representative in there. Can you convince me that they're going to beat not just 3 Power 5s in a row, because they're going to have a quarterfinal, a semifinal, and a final? Could you say, with full reference and full ability, they're not only going to beat an Alabama in the first round, but also an Ohio State in the second round, and also a Clemson for the final? To me, I've never seen an argument that's been strong enough that a G5 can beat 3 gigantic Power 5 powerhouses in a span of what would be 1 month. Because even if we expanded it out to 8 or to 6 or however else we want to expand it out, you're going to have 3 different huge games, all done in a span of, at best, 6 weeks. For right now, if you aren't able to make it into that top 4, I'm not convinced that you deserve to be able to play for that national championship. I'm not sure you can go through with that national championship.
Gotcha. Very interesting take. Then again, you are the expert, so.
So my quick take on this is I am firmly, I will disagree with JD in that I am firmly in the it needs to be at least 8 teams. And part of me says it would it makes no sense not to go to a 16-team playoff. If you go to the FCS level, FCS is so, for all intents and purposes, the FCS National Championship is the only NCAA championship. And they do I think it's more than 16. I want to say it's like 18 or 30 or something. It's a 32-team playoff in the FCS level. In my mind, there's not much reason why we can't go to 8 or at least 16. And for the reason that I think 4 is, if you're going to go with the argument that it's a clear top 4, I think that's fine. But I think that there's room, number one, for a Cinderella story, and it's also, I just don't think that it's going to do any bad to expand it to 8, and in fact, I think it will do it much better. You're going to have some teams, we've had this argument every single year since the inception, and I think this might be one of the first years where I think it's pretty clear top 4, and I'll disagree with JD on that again, but there's always been the number 5 team that's just like, oh, so close. And I think that a number 5 team can absolutely beat a number 1 team. I think that is close enough. I would hesitate to go with the idea of having you have your automatic entries from your ACC champion, all the conference champions, which would probably leave like a wild card and a G5 champion from here and there. I'm not entirely sold on that idea yet. I think that in crazy land where for some reason the ACC takes off and the SEC takes a nosedive, and it's basically the ACC of this year where you basically have Clemson and nobody else really of value. Then I don't think it's that crazy to say like, all right, well we need more ACC spots than SEC spots. I mean, I think that's having a guaranteed one of each I just don't think is the way to go. And that is why we have rankings. Sometimes that is why we have 3 SEC teams in the top 10 and 3 Big Ten teams and 1 ACC team, for example, right? So if you have the top 8 teams and one of those happens to be a G5, I'm all for it. I'm super happy. But it is entirely it is not for the fact that they're conference, but it's the fact that they were able to earn that spot based on their level of play, their strength of schedule, and who they've beaten. Someone like, as a quick sidebar, I mean, really the only reason we see Clemson in the CFP this year is the sole fact that they're 13-0. They have no quality wins. Granted, they took everyone to the woodshed, including their one ranked win, number 24, Virginia. That is their only ranked win. And the only reason why they're in the CFP is because they're 13-0. If they would have had that one loss to UNC, I guarantee you they're not in the playoff. And in fact, I think they probably are about Alabama's spot, maybe barely sniffing 10. But back to the CFP, I think that going to an 8 is going to be absolutely better for the program, and it just makes sense with the rest of the models of college football. I think we can get a few more games out of this. We don't really have to mess up the bowl schedule that much. It's really not that even many more games. So yeah, at the end of the day, I'm just firmly in the 8 camp.
Question here from Charles. Would anyone agree that the idea that the unknown schools that are playing well, or those that are 11-1 or 10-2 teams, could beat those top 4 guys? It's how the upsets happen in March Madness.
Upsets happening like in March Madness, they can happen in college football. The thing is, they are rare. One of the joys of college basketball and the March Madness tournament is you've got 5 guys on a court, and honestly, if you've got one superstar, see Ja Morant down at Murray State last year when they were doing their run in the March Madness tournament, you can't get that in college football. You can have one generational quarterback who could probably change something, but if he doesn't have 5 blockers, it doesn't matter. If he doesn't have guys who can catch the ball, that doesn't matter. If he doesn't have a running back that keeps the safeties in check to actually make sure that the quarterback can actually make some movement, it's not going to matter either. Same thing if you flip it onto the defense. There's too many keys and too many cogs put into a college football system just to play the game itself to get a very replicable upset formula. That's one of the reasons why I'm also against being able to expand that playoff, because the idea is in March Madness, you can get a couple of upsets. First couple of rounds, you can get a Chicago Loyola to get into the Final Four in once in a blue moon. The idea that we're going to be able to see that in college football has largely proven, with the exception of your rarities, like an App State over a Michigan, a Boise State over a stacked Oklahoma, or something else like that. That's not very common in college football as we know it. One of the reasons we cherish and love these upsets in college football is because they are so rare. It's what makes the regular season dynamic. It's what makes stupid bowl games fantastic. If you look at this year's bowl schedule, you're going to see examples like a Memphis who is losing their head coach to Florida State, going up a number 10 Penn State. That's an opportunity for a very stupid football game to happen. You've got the University of Utah coming in as a top 15 opponent into San Antonio for the Alamo Bowl against an unranked Texas. That's an ability for you to get an upset there, and that can be incredibly entertaining as well. But the reason that we see that is because these upsets are rare.
So, very quickly, I could not disagree more. So, and only for the fact that, so, I mean, I agree that you're saying that, I'm sorry, I said I couldn't disagree more, and then I said I agree. But what I was really getting at was I agree that it's great to see those crazy upsets, but you're really talking about a huge David and Goliath. I mean, if we're talking about expanding the playoffs to 8 versus 4, then, yeah, it's not crazy to think, can Oklahoma beat LSU? That's not that crazy. But you're basically saying it's insane for me to think that the University of Wisconsin can beat LSU. That is who's ranked number 8 right now. If we took the top 8 CFP right now, that is not crazy. If we're talking 16, all right, who's ranked 16 right now in the CFP? Okay, that's Iowa. Okay, I don't. All right. But can Memphis, number 17. Can Memphis beat LSU? No, that would be insane. That is David and Goliath. Wisconsin, number 8. No, that is not the kind of upset that would break people into a turmoil. Someone coming in from you said Murray State, a tiny Kentucky school that tons of people have never heard of and making waves in college basketball. Yes, that's crazy. That is David and Goliath, and that can happen in basketball. But while you're right about there's a lot of cogs, that shit happens. Oh, sorry, I'm swearing, but that stuff happens every week in college football, and we do love it. But of course, it's we're not talking about Utah suddenly getting a spot in the college football playoff and suddenly beating Michigan or something like that. This is something you're talking about a 9-3 team versus a 10-2 team, right? That is not that crazy of an upset. And I think in that case, there's no reason we shouldn't go to 8 because that 8 over 1 is not that crazy.
I'm going to jump in here with a quick tweet that Chris Fowler just sent out, famous for ABC primetime game announcing. These would be current projected lines if we were to have an 18 playoff for this year. Number 8, Memphis, is a 24-point dog to number 1, LSU. Number 7, Baylor, is a 21-point dog to number 2, Ohio State. Number 6, Oregon, is a 20-point dog to Clemson. And then you got Georgia, Oklahoma, where Georgia would actually be favored by 1.5. But the bottom line is, if we're talking upsets, that's the kind of upset I'm going to have to need to see not just once, not just twice, but 3 times to see one of these teams become a national champion. I'll rest my case again that if you're in the top 4, you're in the top 4. This playoff system is fine. Let's continue on with it.
Okay. Oh, and for the record, Charles here says a 6-6 Miami or FSU could beat Ohio State.
No, that's not true. No, Florida State belongs in a very, very deep hole. But we're going to get out of it soon enough, right?
Exactly. So,
yes, next year's the year.
So, speaking of Florida State, let's...
yeah, we got the coaching carousel. Sorry, Andrew, this is like something I'm actually interested in because 2 of my alma maters, one is losing a head coach and one is gaining one. So I've got FAU.
Francisco got his master's from FAU.
I went to every public school in Florida, but yeah. Yeah, so Lane Kiffin is heading on over to Ole Miss, much to the chagrin of my brother-in-law, who's a Mississippi State alum. So, I mean, how does that affect, like, especially when you have like a program like FAU, which was, doing well, won their conference championship. Andrew, you actually went to cover that game. I mean, does the program itself, are they going to be in shambles now that he's leaving, or is it just ready for the next person to step in there?
I can give you a very quick answer to that. FAU is not going to be in shambles because if you'll remember, there's a certain offensive coordinator who is not being retained at FSU. He's got some familiarity with FAU. I would be very surprised if FAU does any call to anybody but Kendall Briles to be the head coach of FAU to continue on the Lane train. You got to remember, Mike Kiffin's first year when he was there, dynamic offense that was led by Kendall Briles. Kendall Briles has been rumored for years now to leave for a G5 head coaching job. He's already familiar with Florida. He was already negotiating with Florida State as a possibility, but Mike Norvell is coming in to Florida State. He's bringing his own offensive coordinator. Kendall Briles is a free agent. I will be stunned if FAU decides to go with anybody else other than Kendall Briles. I think they are in a great position in CUSA, and I see FAU still being a very good power for years to come, especially in CUSA at that G5 level.
Alrighty. Okay. Start
now, let me
season
ask
tickets
you
for
this. I know I've been reading. I follow a lot of guys that cover FAU, FIU on Twitter, and a lot of them have been saying that the players want their defensive coordinator to be the new head coach. Even some alums and people that have played against him said that he would be a great head coach for FAU. I don't know. Do you think that bringing in an outsider, no matter how good he is, that might create some dissension in the ranks?
I mean, not necessarily. One of the huge things about any coaching search is if you look at any coach, it's going to be a crapshoot. If you looked at Willie Taggart 2 years ago, nobody at Florida State would have expected, well, he's going to flame out and he's going to be fired within 2 years. Similarly, if you look at Clemson, nobody looked at Dabo Swinney when he was an interim head coach from being a wide receiver coach. And nobody, especially if you looked at after 2011, they lose 70-33 in the Orange Bowl to West Virginia. If you told any Clemson fan, within the next 7 years, you're going to have 2 national championships, you're going to be playing in 2 others, and you're going to be in a playoff system that's going to put you in the playoffs for at least 2 additional years, nobody would have believed that at all in the slightest. Every coaching shoot, no matter how good or how terrible it ends on paper, is still like rolling dice at a craps table in Vegas. You don't know what that final result is going to be. You can only hedge on what you think it's going to be. I am not concerned about whether it's an insider or an outsider who takes over any program. That program already knows what they're getting into, and it literally is just going to be up to fate to see what happens with that coaching hire.
And then I guess we'll cover it quick because I'm sure, I don't know, the journalist in me should cover it, even though it's a bit controversial. Do you think that the fact that his father, Art Briles, was a part of the whole Baylor controversy a few years ago, do you think that affects whether he gets a job? Because in Charles' words, he said, good to see he wasn't blacklisted. Would you say that he is blacklisted, or I don't know?
The father, Art Briles?
No, Kendall.
Oh, no. I mean, Kendall's gotten a job at FAU. He's gotten a job at Florida State. He's gotten a job at Houston. Kendall Briles can get any coaching job he wants. Now, the interesting part would be if he does take a head coaching job, such as FAU, and then he decides, hey, Dad, do you want to be my offensive coordinator? Oh, boy, that's where things get spicy and fun. But as far as Kendall Briles himself goes, as far as we know, he's never been named in an individual lawsuit. He's never been directly tied in. His father is a different story. But as far as he goes on his own, he's already been vetted and cleared by 3 different institutions. I'd be very surprised if anybody ends up blacklisting him for a head coaching job just because of what his father has been tied to when 3 other institutions independently have verified and vetted him.
Gotcha.
So my only real comment on that is blacklisted? Absolutely not. Will it probably be part of the conversation? I mean, absolutely. I mean, and that's proven by the fact that you even have to ask that question. The simple fact that the name Briles brings back memories of the Baylor scandal is unfortunately going to hang around Kendall for quite a while. And I think, kind of like JD said, unless he does a monumentally stupid decision and decides, go ahead and hire my dad into a position like this, I think it's not going to get any further than having someone ask the question whether it's going to matter and having someone respond no.
Gotcha. All right, so let's see what else. So we've covered FAU. I guess should we do a little bit deeper dive into the Mike Norvell hire over at FSU?
You can do that.
Sure. Why not? Let's hear. Give me some actual hope, please.
I absolutely love Mike Norvell. I'm a bandwagon Memphis fan, especially after this year, getting to experience them at the Liberty Bowl when they played SMU and got game day. That was an unreal atmosphere. And even though Justin Fuente laid the foundation to make the Memphis program become relevant as a G5, Mike Norvell is the one who continued it on. I think there are a couple of a little bit of concerns to probably look at. Obviously, he is 0-3 in bowl games. It took until this year for him to actually win a conference championship. Granted, he ran into a couple of buzzmills with the UCF teams that he had to end up facing for at least 2 of the other seasons. But when it all comes down to it,
we played them 4 times in 2 seasons. Twice in the regular season, twice in the conference championship, and we beat them all 4 times. Sorry, I just had to put that out there.
No, that is fine. That is fine. But needless to say, he's a brilliant young mind. He's going to do great offensively. He has a skill set for developing coaches that end up getting hired who end up getting involved. He's got this great skill set that he built over at Arizona State. He knows how to evaluate talent, particularly when it comes to his coaching tree and who his assistants are. He just snatched the offensive coordinator from Auburn, that was his right-hand man when he was at Arizona State.
He actually, from what I've heard, I think he took a pay. He could have gotten more from Florida State, but he took a little less money so he could get better coaches around him, from what I've heard.
Yeah, and that's generally common that you'll see on a first-year Power 5 head coach. They'll take a little bit less pay themselves so that they get longer-term security by getting good assistants. And we're seeing that already with Mike Norvell, and that's already a sign that you're already getting into somebody who actually knows what they're doing. One of the things that you can immediately look at the Willie Taggart era is it took him a long time to build out his staff of 10. Mike Norvell is already quickly working through his ranks. We're not even to the first signing day, and he's already got coordinators. He's already got assistants. He's already making all the things happen. Now, granted, I'm a little sad that it comes at the cost of him not coaching in Memphis' first ever New Year's Six game, and I've obviously got some thoughts on that because I'm a Memphis bandwagoner for this season. But in terms of what Florida State is getting, I think they're definitely getting a solid start. I'm not 100% sure that this is the big splash hire. I know there were a lot of people, maybe a little bit more on the delusional side, who thought they were getting Bob Stoops out of retirement, or they were going to get
I didn't think that would happen.
Bobby Bowden to come back and return. But I think Mike Norvell is going to give them a solid base foundation. But as we've said before, every coaching hire is going to be a crapshoot. All I can say for right now is he's doing all the right steps that he's supposed to do. I think Florida State could have done a lot worse in their hire. On paper, I like what I'm seeing with Mike Norvell.
I completely agree. I mean, the FSU's last hire obviously didn't go terribly well. They spent a ton of money bringing Willie Taggart over from, I think, Oregon.
Yep.
And
it
obviously just didn't pan out for them. Now they're taking, admittedly, a gamble. And like JD had already mentioned, he is 0-3 as a head coach at Memphis for bowl games. But he has a very real chance this year. He brought his team to a New Year's Six bowl. And who knows, Memphis might actually be able to come out victorious in that, although it wouldn't really be entirely by his hand. Now, I think in terms of it being a good hire for Florida State, I think this was the right move. They're definitely taking a bit of a pendulum swing at it. You know, their last one was Willie Taggart, and that was quite a huge swing. And this one, they're kind of going back down there, saying like, all right, maybe we were looking a little too crazy the last one. Let's go ahead and see if we can get an up and comer. Mike Norvell is only 38 years old. He does have quite a bit of a coaching resume. He's coached at Tulsa, Pittsburgh, Arizona State, where he was an assistant head coach before actually taking his real first head coaching job at Memphis. But you also do have to remember that he is very young. This will be his, I think, 14th or 15th year, including his first year being a graduate assistant. So he's a very young coach, and putting him in the driver's seat for a program like FSU is absolutely a gamble. But I think at this point it's the right gamble to make for FSU.
Very cool. Now, here's one that I've found interesting. I forget his name, but the head coach at Appalachian State is, for those who don't know,
Drinkwitz.
This was his first season at Appalachian State. He was just hired to Missouri, for, what was it, $4 million a year was his salary?
Yes, $4 million in salary. I believe he has a $6 million buyout that goes down. $1 million a year for every year that he stays at Mizzou.
Oh, and just for the record, Charles says Drinkwitz is the perfect Missouri coach name.
I mean, listen, it was a man named Elia Drinkwitz who was pulled out of Appalachian State in Boone, North Carolina. I mean, there are only like 3 or 4 programs that name fits in perfectly. Mizzou is one of them.
So, now speaking of gambles, that's like the ultimate gamble. That's up there, I think. Guys, one season in, And a lot of it, I think, was the work of his predecessor that kind of carried over into this season. I don't know. Do you think that was worth the gamble?
Boy, I'm not as versed in this as I wish I was. But off the top of my head, on paper it seems like it's certainly more of a gamble than Florida State's taking if we're kind of comparing the two. Mizzou is certainly one of the teams in the SEC that has been taking a bit of a beating the past couple of years. They've been middling at best. I want to say they had a 9-win season in the past 5 years, but they haven't been crazy successful. But I definitely think that taking a coach 1 year out of, admittedly a very successful season at Appalachian State, that's any way you slice it, that's a gamble. As far as how severe of a gamble it is, that who knows? I mean, it's hindsight is 20/20. We could be looking at this in a couple of years and saying, "Holy crap, they made the best decision ever." This could be a Dabo Swinney hire, but it could also be a Charlie Strong hire for Texas, right? Who knows?
I think one of the other things that we have to consider with the Missouri job is the very special circumstances that they have surrounding everything with that program. They've got a lot of controversy right now with their president. They have declining enrollment. They have a lot of political issues that are happening at the university as well. And on top of that, they just went through a bunch of sanctions this year where they went 6-6, couldn't go to a bowl game because of a tutoring scandal. Another great case of why you should never work with the NCAA, make them prove that you actually did something wrong. But all that to say, this was definitely a surprise firing. When Barry Odom was let go from the program, I don't think anybody saw this one coming. Similarly, I don't think anybody saw Eli Drinkwitz going to Mizzou as well. One of the specific reasons I think they had to go with that hire is because Mizzou was not going to land a big name. They were not going to land a name that was going to rouse a whole bunch of wow, that was an incredible hire. They had to go with somebody who's going to be a high-risk, high-reward type of guy, and that's why they ended up going with Eli Drinkwitz.
Gotcha. I don't know. Can you guys think of any other, or actually, now that I think about it, I know this is kind of off the cuff, but that's kind of how we do things around here. We're not professionals. I think our sponsors have given us 30-something cents.
That's 30 cents more than I've ever been paid for terrible opinions.
Washington's head coach. Goodness, I forget his Peterson, right? Chris Peterson?
Yeah.
Random, out of the blue, decides to retire. He says it was to recharge. He was burned out. That was definitely something that no one seemed to be expecting. I think there was only one person. Our CFB has a Deadpool for coaches. People, I don't want to say gamble, but they make predictions on when coaches, who will be fired and when. I think only one person out of the, I don't know, probably hundreds, only one got that one. I don't know. What's your take on it?
See Bob Stoops, 2016.
Hey, man, he could be pulling an Urban Meyer. Who knows? Really, who knows? I mean, that was one of those things where I saw the tweet and I was like, wait, what? So, yeah, I'm definitely with you on completely dumbfounded on that. I have no idea who they're going to hire, but that's definitely something to watch. Who knows? Maybe he's going to resurface in a couple of years as, I don't know, the coach of USC after they extend Clay Helton for another 3 years. Ha-ha, USC.
All right. So let me see. JD, you said there were a couple of things that you wanted to discuss.
Sure.
Okay, so I don't know. Is there any other things in the coaching carousel that you'd like to hit on?
Oh, well, why, yes, in fact, if you were to ask me whether I want to talk about any of that, yes, I sincerely believe my favorite hire in this cycle, a lot of people are rightfully going to say Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin. We're going to talk about that in a second. Sam Pittman to Arkansas is such a delightful hire. It has made my soul so happy to hear that man get that job. If you have not seen his press conference yet, I implore you to take a look at it.
Oh, boy.
He talks and he literally cries at the podium saying how much this job means to him, how great it is to be the head coach of the Arkansas Razorbacks program. This is a man, when you take a look at him, you realize this is a dude who can coach Arkansas. He's got the look, he's got the attitude, he's got the background. I think they went so strongly in the opposite direction from Brett Bielema to Chad Morris. They went from this burly Big Ten offense to a pony-up, high-tempo speed, and we saw how disastrously that went. I think when you look at who is going to shore up this offensive line, who is going to teach them physicality, who is going to teach them Arkansas tradition, man, Sam Pittman is going to be such a great cultural fit for Arkansas. I love that hire so much. And additionally, if you have not seen any of his Twitter videos, a fun fact, when he was hired, he was blocking the University of Arkansas on Twitter. That's a fun thing that they went through during his hiring ceremony and announcement. But if you actually take a look at any of his social media, especially when he started working at the University of Georgia. Every single video, he will finish it by playing that Glory fight song from the University of Georgia Bulldogs marching band and scream, "Yes, sir!" At the end of every single video. There is a supercut of it out on the internet. It is some of the greatest internet that I've seen this past week. I am so happy with Sam Pittman getting that Arkansas job. I think maybe his interview might have been, how well can you call some hogs? And then they saw that video and said, yep, you're hired. That's it.
Lucas, do you have a hire?
Not really. Honestly, my big one was the one that we've been talking about a little bit, which was Lane Kiffin to Ole Miss. I had the chance, the pleasure, in fact, to interview him and speak with him at USA Media Days earlier this year, and he's just a delight to talk to. It's actually kind of amazing to kind of it wasn't necessarily one-on-one, it was like 1 to 4, but he is such a soft-spoken, very gentle man, and just the thought of him every time since then, every time I see or Joey Freshwater or the success that he's had at FAU, it just brings me warm fuzzies, and I'm so happy to see him go back to being a P5 head coach after having blowout success at FAU, and I really hope that he has success at Ole Miss, not get tarmacked again. In fact, he had I think that what really sold it for me was somebody asked him a question about when he got to Ole Miss, and he was getting off the plane and kissing babies or something like that, and they asked him about it, and he said it was better than a previous tarmac experience I had, and that just sold it before the Lane trade.
Just as a reference to the guys, was it Tennessee or was it Alabama where that happened?
It was USC.
It was USC.
I love the coordination there.
I'll tell this story because it's one of the greatest firings in the history of all time. It literally happened where they played a game at Arizona State. They got run out of the building. It was something like 56-21 or something similar to that. They went back to the team plane. The athletic director at USC, Pat Hayden, told Lane Kiffin on the tarmac, by the way, you're fired. Find your own way back to Los Angeles. The team took off without Lane Kiffin and abandoned him after he was fired. And it's one of the greatest college football stories of all time. And to me, it's the greatest firing of all time. Just the coldness of, you are too terrible.
Yeah, you gotta love college football. You don't have that sort of stuff happening in the pros.
That was one of the events that you just look back on and just say, like, how did that actually happen?
Wow.
To an offensive coordinator of one of the most recognizable blue bloods in the country, and just to kind of see his redemption arc and how he leaned so hard into that name, how he's kind of grown from it has been amazing. And just to see that he's still got that little bit of humor in him to just to call down from, it's one of the most endearing things about him, at least to me.
Charles chimed in here. Interesting how dealing with Al Davis was a better experience for Lane than all the college ADs that he's dealt with.
I also want to throw out two quick things about this Lane Kiffin hire, which I love so much. The first one is Lane Kiffin going back into the SEC. They said that hell would freeze over when that happens. I want you to look at the weather report in Oxford, Mississippi right now and see what kind of weather is happening at Ole Miss.
Let's see. It is literally freezing right now.
It is literally snowing and a frozen condition.
Oh my goodness gracious! It is 32 degrees.
And now Lane Kiffin is back in the SEC. That's the first thing that I want to throw out there. And the second one, which I think is also just so absolutely delightful. You know, everybody's going to be talking about all the great games that Lane Kiffin's going to have. He's going to open up his season next year in Houston in a neutral site game against Baylor at the Houston Texans Stadium. Do you know who he hosts on October 3rd, 2020? He's hosting Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide.
That's going to be fun.
Juicy.
All of his former assistants for Nick Saban never beat Nick Saban after they've gone off to go get their own head coaching job. If Lane Kiffin becomes the first former Saban assistant to beat Nick Saban, I think, like, everything in the SEC is just going to fold over in on itself, not be contained. But you know what makes all of it even better? These specific dates have not been announced for 2021. But we know the schedule. He'll play at Tuscaloosa against the Alabama Crimson Tide. But do you know who the Ole Miss Rebels will also play in the SEC in some cross-division rivalry game? In a game where they will go on the road? That's right. Papa Kiffin's going back to Knoxville, Tennessee, and they might burn down Gillette Stadium.
I'm gonna have to warn my one of my friends from FSU. He's a cop in Knoxville now. He actually covers the UT games up there. I gotta warn him. Oh boy.
He did this year. I mean, I know they ended up going. They're bowl eligible, but. It was not pretty, at least at the start.
And you know why this will be so good? It's because Kiffin will talk that smack before, he will talk that smack during, and he will talk that smack after, especially if he walks out with a win against Tennessee Vols.
Oh boy.
It'll be a lot of fun. I can't wait for next season and 2021.
Oh, wait, here's a question I wanted to ask just to pop out here. Because speaking of Tennessee Vols and dead football programs, which one of the Power 5 teams, which program is the most dead? Nebraska, Tennessee, or Miami? Oh, Florida.
Nebraska.
Okay.
I have it okay, so there's obviously no bias being from the state with the superior far and away corn. And the fact that they're also called bug eaters should remain referred to as such. But Nebraska can go to hell, and I'm so glad that they're not going to a bowl. They went 5-7 after being preseason ranked and having everybody talk about how they're going to go 9-3 because they have Scott Frost. Go to hell. I'm so happy. That's all I have to say about that.
What about you, JD?
Out of those three, I mean, I also have to go with Nebraska. I will go for more serious reasons.
There's no bias in mine. What are you talking about?
One of the reasons that Nebraska got into prominence was its ability to adapt to the option offense and to build a strength and conditioning program which had never been seen in the history of college football. It's what led their rise in the 1970s. It's what fueled their gigantic streak of playing in New Year's Six, BCS, huge bowl games from 1980. I believe it's 1983 through 1998, where they played in a BCS quality game every single year. The reason they did that was because they had the innovation that nobody else in college football did. The rest of the game has caught up to Nebraska, but now Nebraska no longer plays games in Texas where they got a whole bunch of their scholarship players. The walk-on program has been emulated everywhere else. You don't have a natural recruiting footprint in Nebraska. You don't have the strong ties to the Big Ten, where all these other establishments are. And even though you're in the Big Ten West, which is objectively the easier division to be in the Big Ten, you're still stuck in a program where you have a Wisconsin that knows their identity. You have an Iowa that knows their identity. You have a Minnesota now starting to figure out their identity under PJ Fleck. And then you just have wild random things like Lovie Smith figuring out, how to get Illinois to a bowl game. You have cross-divisional rivalries where every other year you're going to have to play a Michigan, Ohio State, a Penn State, a Michigan State. You don't get the easy games in the Big Ten like you thought you might have, whereas in the Big 12, you at least got to play games where you got to recruit Texas talent, where you got to develop your identity as a new Big 12 player. You don't have any of that yet in the Big Ten, and right now, if Scott Frost can't figure it out, I'm not sure who else could figure it out for Nebraska.
And so one very quick recruiting thing on that I wanted to touch on, the fact that they lost Texas especially as a pipeline state, and just the simple fact of being in the Midwest, being really away from some of like the really big hubs of just having people, and not having a ton of people means you have a lot less talent that are likely to come to you because it's the easy option. This has been a problem for Iowa State, Wisconsin, I guess to a lesser extent because they're closer to Chicago, but certainly Kansas State. I mean, really for those schools, you're really just going to the closest metropolitan areas, which are a state away. Iowa and Iowa State are fighting over Chicago, the Minneapolis area, and you've got maybe like Kansas City. Nebraska is in the same boat, but now they're contending against the schools of Minnesota. You've got Illinois now, who might actually become a player in the recruiting game with Lovie Smith. That they're facing a uphill battle when it comes to recruiting, and that is absolutely hurting them when it comes to being able to develop that talent. Because if you're getting a lower tier, I guess for lack of a better term, or you're not getting the kind of quality recruits that you think you're going to be getting with success, like Nebraska could be getting, then you can't develop them into 5 stars if they start out too low. It's just an uphill battle, and I think the fact that they don't have they don't have their identity yet, and they just can't get to that point where they're going to get the most out of their development yet. I think for the next couple of years, they are going to be looking at maybe another 5-7 season, maybe another 4-8. I think a 7-5 is not out of the question with the way that the Big Ten is just chaotic every year, and we always have a couple of opponents that are going to be G5 that are fairly easy to beat in the area. The Big Ten usually likes to beat up on the MAC, things like that. But give them 5, 6, 7 years. I think that if they really buckle down, they might actually be able to come up with something.
Okay. Let me see. JD sent me a few things. Let's cover bowls really quick. JD said he wanted to discuss the best non-playoff games, which is interesting. Do you guys want to chime in, Francisco and Charles? I know I've kind of been kind of hogging time from you. But...
No, that's fine, man. It's like I said, you were taking lead on this one. I am look, as far as anything, I went to Florida State. cheered on the Noles, was there for the Christian Ponder years and stuff like that. But other than that, other than 2013, it's been a tough slog since then. So it was nice to hear some kind words about our next head coach, and hopefully we'll return to actual relevance soon enough. So I'm happy about that, and it looks like a lot of FSU fans are also happy with the hire from the Twitter accounts that I'm following of other alums. Okay, so can Virginia beat the Gators in the Orange Bowl? Because that would be nice at the very least for me.
Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to be a very fair fight for the Cavaliers. I think Florida is going to handle them very easily. But I know that you really want some positive words, especially to make you feel better for your Noles soul. So how about we talk about the fact that Miami is going to have to play a road game against Louisiana Tech?
Right, good old Shreveport, Louisiana, baby. All right.
Against the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs, this is literally a home game for Louisiana Tech. For as hyped as Miami was, especially with the Manny Diaz hire and how everything was supposed to go this season, man, that is hilarious to watch as an outside observer.
Oh.
And I'm sure makes you very, very satisfied as an FSU fan.
I slathered that FIU loss all over me. That was great. Oh. And I lived down here in Miami with Andrew, so it was fantastic. And of course, you were there, Andrew.
Right. Something really funny. So when FIU beat Miami, one of probably the top comment on the game thread was the sound. I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember exactly. The sound you hear is a bunch of crap. I forgot what it was. It was a bunch of fans who FIU students. Crap, I forgot what it was. It was a bunch of fans that were discarding their clothes angrily or something like that. Man, I ruined the punchline by.
Maybe we can loop it back around, because the other bowl game, I guess, that seems interesting to me is in your favorite city, Andrew, Orlando, Florida. We got the Citrus Bowl between Bama and Michigan. Now Harbaugh. I mean, it's been years now. Is he safe at Michigan? Is he safe after all these years? Because he still, he can't even beat Ohio State. I mean, it's awful.
I mean, I think the answer is yes, he is safe. We'll talk about that coaching in a little bit, but this game was actually going to be the next game that I wanted to talk about in terms of what is hilarious. How much would you be willing to pay to go to the start of the season, preseason, week 1? It doesn't really matter. Just early in the season, you go up to a Michigan fan and go, "Hey, buddy, I got good news for you. Your bowl game this year, you're playing Alabama in a bowl game. Hooray! It's going to be on New Year's Eve. Hooray! Do you want to know the rest of the story? No, I don't." That's one of the reasons, again, it's one of those games where it's objectively funny because I have no ties to either of those two teams. I have no tie to that bowl whatsoever, but just to watch in a vacuum, to see that is how the Citrus Bowl came to be, it's just, that's a chef's kiss right there. In terms of, is Harbaugh safe? Yes, he's going to be safe right now. The problem is Michigan is not going to have somebody better. It's similar to that Scott Frost problem of, if Scott Frost can't fix it at Nebraska, if Jim Harbaugh can't fix it at Michigan, who can? I think one of the huge things that happened with the Michigan job is Ohio State has turned into this superpower, the likes of which we have hardly seen outside of the southeast region of the U.S., where you've got to look at a couple of blue bloods. Like, really, you've only got Clemson, Georgia, Alabama, and LSU that are in that power right now. And again, surprise, look who's in that top 5. But in terms of seeing like this superpower that Ohio State has become, one of the huge reasons it's become that is Michigan, particularly under Jim Harbaugh, for reasons that haven't been explicitly clear, have really stopped trying to invade Ohio in order to get some of their recruits and get that recruiting done. One of the huge disadvantages that creates for Michigan is when they aren't actively trying to get Ohio State gets to selectively pick whoever they want out of Ohio, so they get to go nationally for their recruiting because they already know those four-star kids, those four-star linebackers, four-star offensive linemen who are already in Ohio, who already love Ohio State because they grew up in Ohio. They don't have to do a whole lot of recruiting for them. It's just, hey, Michigan isn't going to try to recruit you. Penn State is exclusively looking in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. We know you're here, and you're going to go with us as soon as we give you a scholarship. That allows them to go get guys like Baron Browning out of Texas. That allows them to go recruit out of Bishop Gorman out in Nevada. That allows them to recruit Florida. That allows them to recruit California because they know all their good guys in Ohio are not going to get picked off by Michigan. I think one of the quickest ways that Harbaugh can fix the Ohio State problem is to actually try to invade Ohio to make that a hard recruiting battle. But I think one of the reasons he doesn't do that is because Michigan has slimmer pickings and Ohio State has kind of had this gentleman's agreement of Michigan doesn't recruit in Ohio, Ohio State doesn't recruit in Michigan. I think one of the huge things for Harbaugh is he doesn't want that invasion to happen in Michigan. So he's trying to go with a much more national profile, like he did at Stanford, like he did in his previous iterations as a head coach. And so that's why we're not seeing that kind of a distinct advantage in recruiting at Michigan. And, of course, when you've got a superpower like Ohio State building its superpower abilities, it's going to end up being a hard time for Jim Harbaugh or any coach at Michigan. Because you can say the same exact problem about James Franklin at Penn State. You can say the same problem about Mark D'Antonio at Michigan State. You can say it about anybody in the Big Ten who is not the surprise game like a night game at Kinnick in Iowa or a night game at Ross-Ade in Purdue or somewhere else where Ohio State gets caught with their pants down because they weren't expecting to have their pants down.
So I will actually give a very short answer this time, and I think that there's too much already been said, and there's also too much that can be said about Harbaugh's tenure. Mm-hmm. The very short answer I have is he safe at Michigan? Absolutely, and it's not even close.
Yep.
All right. I mean, I know he's an alum there, and he's got the pedigree from his previous experience and all that type of stuff. I was just saying, I mean, it seems like Michigan. I mean, I would assume Michigan fans are restless, but they're just gonna have to stick this way with the way Ohio State's built their program, which is, like you've said, it's scary. It's scary good.
I know this is kind of off the beaten path when it comes to bowls, but as Francisco mentioned, Orlando is my favorite city. His favorite city is El Paso.
Good old El Paso, Texas, baby.
He is in heaven because his Noles are playing in his favorite city, in the Sun Bowl, which unfortunately, I mean, as much as I love keeping original bowl names instead of the Chick-fil-A Bowl or something like that, I really kind of wish that they named it the Cereal Bowl. For those who don't know, Kellogg's, it's called the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl this year. They're playing Arizona State, I believe, correct?
Yep, Herm Edwards and his Sun Devils, yep.
JD, can you still hear me?
Yep, sorry, we were muted. Yep, it's A-State, Florida State in El Paso for the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl.
Just briefly, do you want to talk about that? Give predictions?
I mean, it was just funny to me that actually happened. I wish I could afford to go to the game myself, but I don't have I don't want to pay upwards of $500 or more just to see the Seminoles lose in America's best city. But that's just me.
Well, again, that's when you go back to the old mentality of what bowls were for. It's an excuse for a vacation.
I'll tell you this much, man. El Paso, Texas, this time of year, fantastic. It's an absolutely fantastic place to be at this time of year. Weather is great if you haven't been there. It's a nice, small city. Or Big Little
What was
City.
that?
Big Little City. Kind of
Well,
like.
I was saying I was firmly agreeing, and then additionally on top of that, nobody's ever gone to the Sun Bowl to go watch a good football game. They go to the Sun Bowl to go see something that should not ever be televised.
Wasn't that on SB Nation? Wasn't that the worst bowl game? Wasn't it? I think it was the
Oh,
yeah.
yes, you're thinking of, I believe it was, I want to say it was Pitt Miami where it finished 3-0.
I don't know if it was Pitt Miami, but I think it was Pitt versus somebody, and it was the.
Pitt, Oregon State.
That's what it was. That's what it was.
Yes, that's what it is.
Yeah, the game started with a penalty against Oregon State because they wore their dark colored uniforms instead of their white uniforms that day. So they instituted an immediate penalty at the start of the game because it was against NCAA rules.
I also want to play a quick game without y'all looking it up. If you've got a tab open about that Sun Bowl, close it, because I've got a trivia question that none of y'all are going to get.
All right, let's see.
Okay.
Of the 2008 Sun Bowl.
What was the halftime show of the 2008 Sun Bowl?
Yes, what recording artist or group
Oh boy.
performed at the 2008 Sun Bowl?
I know this one,
guarantee
actually.
you are not going to get it.
I actually know this one. Thanks to that SB Nation video.
I don't. I mean, if I had remember, I wish I had remembered. I don't remember. I don't know.
Charles, you want to give it a shot?
It has to be very 2008. I'm assuming. Well, if they're playing at the Sun Bowl, not really 2000. I don't know. Who was popular back then? Chameleonaire? I have no idea. I'm trying to remember who was a fun rapper or something. I don't even know.
Andrew, in front of 49,037 people, who performed at the 2008 Sun Bowl?
The Village People.
That is correct.
Oh boy. Okay.
Because the Sun Bowl set the Guinness World Record for the most people to do the YMCA dance in one place.
Yes. Yes.
What? I didn't know that.
Yes.
Oh, that's hilarious. Wow.
And I guess that was the best thing about that game.
Like, I still,
Like, if you've ever wanted to know, do you ever go to the Sun Bowl for a good football game? No. The answer is still no.
I think Florida State won the Sun Bowl a few years ago. I don't know if it's on the trophy. I've seen the Sun Bowl trophy. They won one of them way back when.
all right.
But speaking of other bowl games, I know this bowl game is going to be very near and dear to Lucas's heart because the Cheez-It Bowl this year might actually be good. You've got Washington State Air Force.
Let me just say that the Cheez-It Bowl's logo is brilliant. It is a brilliant logo. It's a Cheez-It. It's a Cheez-It.
All right, go ahead.
Say,
Sorry.
you've got a 10-win ranked Air Force going up against Mike Leach and the Washington State Cougars. It's going to be a fun game. It's going to be an entertaining game. So we need something else that's going to be rancid, terrible, just a game where we all hate and despise it until it's the fourth quarter and we start braying and oinking for overtime. My friends, I direct you to the Red Box Bowl because we got Illinois versus Cal.
Oh, that's great. In good old Santa Clara, California. Oh, boy.
I am so excited for this game. Illinois making a bowl berth. I am just so excited to see Lovie Smith's beard in this game.
Splendid facial hair.
It is what he derives power from. I am sure.
All hail Black Santa.
Oh, goodness. So, Lucas, you're going to that one?
No, I wish I was. It's near and dear because I don't know. I used to kind of have a soft spot for Illinois. They're the UI of 4 hours to hour east, or at least where I'm from. And I mean they're the underdogs in the Big Ten, right? I mean they're a team that does not go to a bowl often, and it was so awesome for me to see that they were actually going to a bowl game. I'm glad that we got our win over them, and from there I was just like, all right, go Illinois, you go the distance.
Let me see. JD, who is, I'm assuming TCU's in a bowl this year, correct?
No.
They're not.
Sorry, why would you think that I have anything related to TCU? That's a very weird question. I appreciate the question, but that's a very weird inquiry.
I'm trying to just go down the list of the bowls that our favorite teams are in.
Listen, the government doesn't know where I am, and the government can't prove where I went to college at. So you can't either.
Fair enough. Let's see what else.
Talk about a couple other bangers that are going to be happening, though. I think one of the ones that is a lose-lose situation for everybody involved, maybe the most tragic bowl that we've got for this year. It is going to be, without question, this year's Las Vegas Bowl, because in Chris Peterson's final game ever, he's going to have to coach against Boise State.
Oh, no.
They're going to get destroyed.
So for those who don't know, Chris Peterson, former head coach of Boise State, was he the head coach during the OU game in 2007?
Yes.
Oh,
yes, so Boise State that
right.
we came to know and love was coached by Chris Peterson. He took the Washington job, I believe, in 2013. Because it was the only other job that he would have possibly taken outside of Boise State. But yeah, he decided, of course, as we mentioned earlier in the show, he decided to retire. He had decided that he had had enough of coaching. He promoted his defensive coordinator to take over the position. And then promptly, the bowl committees decided, yep, we're going to pair you up against Boise State for your final ever game. So either Chris Peterson is going to lose to his former team, or he's going to have to dunk on his former team in order to end his coaching career. And I cannot imagine anything more tragic than that.
Before ending his
Wow.
coaching career, or pulling an Urban Meyer and coming back a few years later to another blue blood program.
Huh, interesting. Man, that sucks.
I will say, at least on a happy note, to change off to somewhere else in the Mountain West, man, we've got an underreported banger of a game on Christmas Eve where it belongs. We got the Hawaii Bowl, where my beloved Hawaii Rainbow Warriors, my true and only team, any other teams are fake news, are taking on their old rivals BYU. It's a historical rivalry that was a huge deal in the 80s and the early 90s. This is going to be an insanely fun game. It's going to be a game where Hawaii can get its first 10-win season in nearly a decade. And it's going to be fantastic because more than anything else, I get to do what I think is the most sacred tradition to do on Christmas Eve. It is holy, it is right, and it is sweating whether Hawaii can beat a 55 over-under.
Ooh, interesting. Huh. You're going to have to tell me more about that and see what you come up with. Huh. That's a good one.
Yes, needless to say, we've got a lot of great bowls. We got a lot of great storylines, and a lot of people are going to get swept up in, Ohio State, Clemson, Oklahoma, LSU. These are all great. No, there are so many other great, stupid games that are available on the table. I strongly encourage all of you to watch these other stupid games because you will get your entertainment value.
All right. Now, something else that you wanted me to mention. You've kind of been the quite the traveler this year.
Yes. I've actually done a little bit of traveling with Lucas as well.
So just to let you all know, JD, aside from being awesome and dealing with our little podcast, I guess.
Show, podcast, stream, we're all over. I mean, the Russians love us. That's all I know.
That is true. Our biggest viewership is Russian. And I'm not joking.
So if you thought the American government wasn't watching you, they are now.
Well, listen, we're holed up somewhere in the state of Texas. They can't figure out where I went to school. They can't figure out where my location is. Bring them on.
Oh boy.
So JD is also covers games for it's SiriusXM, right?
Yes, that is correct.
So tell us briefly about your travels this season. I know you had mentioned earlier went to the Liberty Bowl for Memphis SMU. Where else have you been this season?
So I've been across 17 different states over this college football season. I've been to a lot of different places. Some of the places that I've loved a lot, I got to go to West Virginia, Morgantown, to go experience a West Virginia game when they played against Texas Tech. We went off to a Hawaii game on the road at UNLV in their final season at Stan Boyd Stadium. I almost died of alcohol poisoning in Iowa City, Iowa.
Okay.
We had a great time up there when they played Purdue. It was great to watch two teams struggle with the concept of the forward pass. I thought it was absolutely hilarious. We've been all over the place, all over the map. I think easily the Memphis game is the best game that I went to this year. To see that environment, I would say it's probably the second best environment I've been to at any college football game. The only one better being an LSU game at night in Death Valley, which that should be on your bucket list if you are any type of sports fan. Going to LSU in Baton Rouge during a night game, it doesn't even have to be a big game. It just has to be a night game. You need to be there to go experience that firsthand.
And to expound on that, I mean, I've been to Louisiana a few times now. I haven't been to any games so far over there. But as far as the state is concerned, LSU is the team there. That was the most memorabilia merchandise I've seen of anything over there. I didn't see much Saint stuff. I don't know who wears Pelican stuff, but LSU was all over the freaking place in that state. They are nuts for them over there.
Yes, if you leave that state hungry or sober, that's a you problem.
Oh no, yeah, that is absolutely a you problem because there's definitely all kinds of places. I ate at a gas station. And the food was pretty damn good in Louisiana. That was a fun experience actually. I mean, I have to go back at some point. I probably will be soon for work, but yeah. Okay, so out of all the cities you've been to, or at least college towns you've been to, which one was the most surprising to you as far as good experience and or bad experience?
I will say with an exceptional experience, and I actually got to go there with Lucas as well. We did a little Midwestern tour en route to Iowa City, Iowa. We flew into Chicago, which I love the city of Chicago. Always great to be there, but I had never been to the state of Wisconsin before. And we decided, listen, Madison, Wisconsin is only 2 hours away from us. Let's go there, like just for a night. We'll go try out their culture. We'll go eat some of their food. We'll get an Airbnb that's literally on the University of Wisconsin campus. And no, it's not a game week this week, but let's go check it out. My goodness, Madison, Wisconsin did not come to mess around. Extremely good food, extremely good beer, extremely good people. Everything was dirt cheap. And on top of all of that, I was experiencing things that were even possible. If I could paint a picture for you. One of the things that happened as we were walking around the state capitol, going to a couple of the old historic bars, we go into this one little hole in the wall, and we see what looks like a frozen margarita machine. Except, instead of the lime green color or whatever margaritas you prefer, it's bright orange. And we go, okay, what's inside this? And they go, this is a frozen brandy drink. It is brandy.
What?
It is peaches. It is Bellini, it is lemon, and it comes out like a frozen margarita, but it's a brandy drink. They serve it with a little bit of fruit on top, and they serve it out to you. It has fundamentally changed what alcohol can be. And I've never seen anything like it. I have never tasted anything like it, but I know I want to go back to Madison, Wisconsin to go have it again.
Wow. That is crazy.
To which Charles says, so heaven does exist.
Yes, and it's Madison, Wisconsin.
Wow. We're going to have to scrounge up our 30 cents for that one.
Second to Madison, Wisconsin.
Now, Lucas, you obviously went with me to Madison, Wisconsin. You were amazed by the food that we got to go out up there. What were your favorite meals up there? I think Mickey's Dairy Bar was a favorite.
That was far and away some of the best food that I've ever had as a Midwestern fare. And I mean, I come from Iowa where we literally have fried butter on a stick for our state fairs. We're known for pork tenderloins. We do sweet corn, just pork chops in general. So I mean, this kind of food is certainly not. It's not out of the norm for me. But this place, Mickey's Dairy Bar, it just blew my mind. You walk in and just the entire menu is basically painted on one wall, and they sit you down basically shoulder to shoulder with someone else there. It is that full, and we ordered literally chocolate milk. And I can't remember the name of the dish that we got, but it was their special.
Oh, it was their breakfast scrambler.
It's scrambler. And it was $10, but I swear to you, it was 3 pounds of food. This is more.
What was this place called? What was this place called?
Mickey's Dairy Bar. It is across the street from Camp Randall Stadium. This breakfast scramble, as you mentioned, it's $10, but it's about 3 pounds of food. It's going to be twice fried breakfast potatoes. It's going to be fresh cheese. I got pepper jack in mine. I'm not sure. Okay, we both got the fresh pepper jack, which, by the way, as we said, it's a dairy bar. They've got fresh dairy everything.
Oh, dear Lord. Sorry, I was just posting this on the actual screen here.
And
wow.
Gravy and corned beef hash and sausage.
Everything that you could possibly imagine piled onto a giant, just in front of you. And like I said, we just couldn't resist, and we went with chocolate milk as well. And they also make these very large, made in-house cinnamon rolls, and they were unbelievable.
Wow. I'm posting them on the screen here, and it's... Wow.
You literally walk out to the street, and you are at Camp Randall. This is about as close to being basically front row seats for Wisconsin as you could be.
Oh boy!
Wow! You're driving me crazy, guys.
Just needless to say, I think out of the cities that we got to go to, I loved Memphis, Tennessee. I loved Madison, Wisconsin. I would easily put them as my 1A and my 1B as places I got to go visit this year during the college football season.
Wow. Okay. Oof.
I will say very easily though, the most disappointing, without question, had to be Boulder, Colorado. Specifically only for the reason that we went to the USC game on Friday night, and we were so excited because we were finally going to see a Ralphie run live and in person. We had media passes. We were on the field ready to go. They're playing AC/DC. They have the crowd amped up. There are about 2 minutes to go until kickoff. And over the loudspeaker, unfortunately, Ralphie is not feeling well, and we will not be doing a Ralphie run this evening.
Oh, no.
So literally the only reason we went to a Colorado game is not happening. And the disappointment that we felt, we couldn't even enjoy the rest of the city or the university just because, we came here to see a giant 1,000-pound creature barrel off as 6 poor college students are just trying to hold it back
on for dear life and being just running to the side hoping that they don't die tonight.
And it didn't happen. So right there, we would be cheering for USC. We wanted to see them blow them out of the building because what is the point of going to Fulton Field if you don't get to see a Ralphie run?
I wanted to see Colorado win, but I just don't like Clay Hill. So.
Oh wow. Oh, that sucks. Yeah. Yeah, what's the whole point of going?
All right, let's see. What other topics do we want to discuss? We've covered quite a bit. We've got about 15 minutes left in the show.
Well, I mean, I guess I can loop this around because if you guys don't know, I'm a fan of the Miami Dolphins, which means I too suffer in the professional ranks as well. So if the Dolphins are going to do what I think they're going to do with regards to the quarterback, and if they're able to, let's say I think they're the 4th pick at this point in the season. They still hold the 4th pick. If he falls to them, should they draft Tua?
I think if Miami gets a top 5 pick, they absolutely need to trade down for the farm. Go find someone foolish and stupid, maybe the Redskins, and get their 2nd round pick, their 3rd round pick, their 4th round pick, trade it for the number 1 overall pick. Go get Tua with like the 20th pick in the draft.
Okay, alrighty, all right. That's all I wanted to. That's all. I mean, do you think if the Dolphins, because they're most likely going to try and draft a quarterback, most likely. If Tua's not there, which one of the other top quarterbacks, Burrows, from Herbert, any of those guys, would be, I guess, more useful for the Dolphins, I guess? I mean, or at least looks more NFL ready?
I mean, without knowing anything about scheme, because I don't know anything about NFL scheme, I don't know anything about the NFL, I do not care about anything about that.
Alrighty.
But I can tell you, I know a good quarterback from down here in the ranks. I will easily say, if you're a college football fan, you heard during the draft a couple of years ago, well, I think that Lamar Jackson fellow, he needs to be a wide receiver. He's not going to make it as a quarterback. He's now your example candidate for this year. And every single college football fan goes, well, we told you so. Same thing. There's this fella down in Houston by the name of Deshaun Watson, where we watched that draft and went, how did this person fall out of the top 10 when you got Mitchell Trubisky going number 2 overall? Similar to all that, I can tell you who your quarterback's going to be that you need to draft in this round. Joe Burrow is obviously going to be your number 1 pick that you want to get to. Tua is going to be your value pick this year. I think Justin Herbert is going to Justin Herbert is going to be your little overblown pick. He's going to be that 1st round draft pick that he's got all the tangibles, but he's not going to end up doing as well as you think because he's just going to go with the measurables. I think Jalen Hurts is going to be a surprise Dak Prescott type quarterback. A lot of people are going to overlook him for his size or his running ability or something else similar of that nature. But he's going to end up being a Dak Prescott where he's going to be a very, very serviceable quarterback. I think if you continue to look around the college ranks as well, I think you're going to have a couple of G5 studs who are going to surprise a lot of people. And they're going to end up doing very, very well. I think Shane Buechele is going to be one of those guys where you're going to have a surprise. He's going to be probably about like a 4th round draft pick, almost like an Aaron Murray type, where he's going to do very, very suitably. I don't see him as being a big projection star or anything else like that nature. But I think he's going to be one of those quarterbacks who picks up the game. He's going to do very, very well wherever he goes off to. I think that's what you're probably going to be looking at for this quarterback draft class.
I actually, a couple of questions here. Let me start with Charles's, because I think his came in first. Is Joe Burrow real, or is he Troy Smith in the NFL?
No, Joe Burrow is the real legit deal. Troy
He's
Smith,
also huge.
Our Cajun boy is 6'4". He's 216 pounds. He's completing 80% of his passes against SEC defenses. A guy who is going to do very, very well as a pocket passer. I substantially doubt he's going to be a Troy Smith 2.0.
All right, and then another question from user Freddie Airmail. You might recognize him from Reddit. Is New England going to pick up Tua?
I mean, if he's still sitting around at pick number 30, I think they'd be very wise to pull that up. I could definitely see even. I think that could be a pretty good landing spot for Jalen Hurts. Because again, I think he's going to be one of the overlooked guys. I think even looking at the rest of the list, I think we might even see something like a Mason Fine out of North Texas being the value pick for this year. We could even see somebody else where it's just a surprise out of nowhere. Jamie Newman, the quarterback out of Wake Forest, he's got the tangibles at a 6'4", 230. He's going to be probably like a third, fourth round draft pick that's going to work out for somebody. Even Steven Montez out of Colorado, that also would work out.
Hold on, folks. Sorry, everybody. This is we kind of cut off here a little bit. We'll technical difficulties once again with my computer. I'll try and bring us up again real quick. Sorry to JD and Lucas for this is part of the Sports Goofs experience. We will rejoin real soon. Just give me a second here. So anyways, let me just read off to you guys some of the sports scores as of right now. We've got the Heat currently leading the Atlanta Hawks 45-46 down here in Miami. The Panthers and Lightning are also playing right now. So let me rejoin this call here real quick. And we'll Hey there, how's everybody going? Y'all there?
Yep,
we're here. We're just thinking.
Okay, hey, so yeah, my computer sucks. So once again, the Facebook program crashed, so I couldn't hear anything else that was going on. But we're back, and I had to warn everybody on the fly. So sorry about that. This is common for us, and we're actually pretty lucky. We're 146 into this, and the first technical difficulties. So sorry about that. We got lucky this time.
What was the last thing you heard?
Sheesh. I kind of just went into a panic. I forgot the last thing that I heard, but sorry about that. We were answering Freddie's question, actually.
Gotcha. So the thing I brought up is the Heisman finalists. We've got Joe Burrow out of LSU, Chase Davis. It was, man, my memory sucks. So it's Joe Burrow, Justin Fields, Chase Young, and Jalen Hurts. And as JD was mentioning, the first time ever that an offensive and a defensive player from the same team have been Heisman finalists, which is Justin Fields and Chase Young from Ohio State. And I was asking because I think the last time that a defensive player has been among the Heisman finalists was Manti Te'o, I believe. I think that was in 2012.
I seem to be thinking of, wasn't there a Michigan player a couple of years ago who was he was kind of a swing player, like he.
You're thinking of Jabril Peppers.
Yes. Was he in the Heisman race? Because I remember him being just a stud, both offensively and defensively. But for some reason, now that I think about it, I don't think he was. But that would have been probably the closest we would have seen since Manti Te'o.
Do you guys have any predictions on who's going to win, or do you think it's a foregone conclusion that it's going to be Joe Burrow?
It is Joe Burrow. The question is, what percentage of the vote does he get?
Exactly. It's not even a question at this point. It's Joe Burrow. He has the stats. He's on number. He's the QB for Clemson. I think that they are not a dark horse for national champions right now. It is. I agree with JD. It's just what percentage is he going to get, and how wide is the field going to be? It's his.
Gotcha. All right. So JD and Lucas, they need to sign off. So we'll wrap the show without them. But I wanted to thank you guys profusely.
Yes.
So much for coming on the show. It was an absolute blast.
Ton of fun.
It's been a while since I've laughed this hard on the show.
Well, hey, thanks for having us on to come blabber about some of our favorite subjects. Ain't a whole lot of people who always want to love our hot air, but we always appreciate any kind of willing audience.
Definitely. So, again, thank you guys. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yep, thanks a lot.
All right.
Take care now.
You too. Good night.
Bye, guys. Thank you very much. Okay.
All right, so it's just the three of us now. So, what do you guys think? How is it discussing all this? Did we completely lose you at points, or?
Absolutely not. I was thoroughly entertained. This was fantastic.
Yeah, those guys know what they're talking about. As much as I like to say that I know about stuff, and I think I know a decent amount, they definitely know a lot more than I do.
I mean, it's always fantastic to hear it from somebody perspective, from the expert's perspective, somebody who's in the know, that type of thing. I mean, we all have our wheelhouses, that type of stuff. Like it's the same kind of feeling when I get when I hear Charles in his cage. Just you just hear this passion, you hear this other world feeling that you don't have any normal person that just kind of casually follows the sport. You don't get that from somebody like that's really into it. So it's always great to see that. Like when we get to our hockey topics, I start going off on all kinds of stuff, and I go on tangents and all type of things. But it's part of the fun. It's part of the fun going down a rabbit hole that way, and going down the rabbit hole with somebody who knows, the ins and outs of said hole. It's fantastic. I love it. It was great. I was very, very excited to have two guests on the show, and so of course your great work on RCFB has allowed us to have such an experience. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. We have a few minutes left to go before we officially wrap up. Do you guys want to discuss anything else?
Can we do a word for our non-sponsors this late into the show? Because I would love to do that.
Why not? Let's do
it. We usually do it. We always have something saved up, and I don't know who wants to start off for tonight. I guess.
Last week, so I'll let one of you.
Okay. I guess, Charles, do you have anything in mind? If you're there, not other than Nick Bosa or whatever. I just see Bosa's in your comments. If you're there, I can't hear you. No,
Charles?
You're not there. I think we might have lost him.
Yeah.
Okay, well, in any case, I guess I'll do my non-sponsor. So you guys, I can't hear you, dude. I mean, you might have to pop back in, but so we're in the middle of the holiday season for Christmas and Hanukkah and such. We're all doing our things. We're all doing our shopping and things like that. Are you back, dude? You back, Senor Charles?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you very much.
Got
All
it.
right. Okay, so just doing a word from a non-sponsor here. We like people, places, things, concepts, all type of things. So my non-sponsor, I'm gonna have to give it to one of the giant conglomerates, one of our overlords that we will bow to in the next few years. I'm gonna have to give it to Amazon.com. Senor Bezos, who we will be worshiping. Much like Fordism in a Brave New World, it's someday. We're gonna get to that point, but this is a really weird non-sponsor segment so far. I'm expounding the greatness of Amazon.com, but also the dangers of Amazon.com at the same time, and how I fear for our future. But it is scary how reliable they are with regards to getting whatever the heck you want. I mean, I've got my presents, I've got my things, I've got my Amazon Prime account, and yes, I get the music and the videos and stuff, but there's nothing on Prime Video that I really, really like other than some of the stand-up that they have on there that I didn't realize that they had. But, man, it's so convenient it's scary how convenient it is. It's really hard to go back into an actual brick and mortar store and be like, oh crap, I gotta walk around and do things. Now, like if you go onto the Amazon app on your phone now, let's say you want a piece of, let's say you want to buy a new couch. Sure, you can go to City Furniture, you can go to El Dorado or wherever the heck you can buy a couch. But on Amazon, they're like, you know what? We're going to save you all that trouble about, getting in your car, walking, speaking to another human being. Here, just take your phone. We'll do a little augmented reality. Where do you want your couch? Right there? Just point your phone in that empty space where you want your couch, and we're going to make a couch magically appear on your screen, and you can kind of sort of get an idea of how that couch would look in your home. That's what they have now. It's scary with that, the stuff that they have now. At some point, I mean, it really will be a brave new world in that type of sense. Like, 1984, what have you, we're getting there, and Amazon.com is going to be there, and I may have to just bow to our overlords, and that's why I am making sure that when Jeff Bezos hears this in a few years, that I am bowing to you, good sir. So Amazon.com, promo code Overlords.
All right, Charles, you want to name one?
I do, and I feel like this is a carryover of my Black Friday shopping. It's very difficult because I have oodles. I have enough non-sponsors of the week to last me. But I think I'm going to get the thing that I got today. And granted, it's a little Black Friday, so we'll call it something of the holiday shopping. But as you all know, I am basically a walking man-child. On some days, I am a child. On some days, I am a man. Today, I'm a man because off of Amazon, I ordered probably the most responsible thing I think I could ever have ordered in my life. Guys, I'm an attorney. We're all attorneys. What do we have a lot of? Ties. I have like 19 ties, 20 ties. I have an itty bitty living space, itty bitty closets. So I'm like, how can I make my closet economical? And off of Amazon, shout out to Francisco Stuff, I ordered for $8.99 a pair of 2 Tyrex by Tembe. And let me tell you something, I have never been prouder of this purchase and the fact that I've organized my closet a little bit better to have a rack of just my ties set up there to save so much space. If I have a son and he is a strong boy to become a man destined to leave this world, I would not be as proud as him as by the fact that I got this excellent tie rack on Amazon by Tembe, a pack of 2 for $8.99.
It's right on the screen too. This is literally an Amazon.com advertisement.
Yeah, little Thaddeus, Maximus,
it's an infomercial.
Leonardo, none of them will be able to bring me more. You know what? My firstborn son's name is gonna be Tembe. My firstborn daughter's name, Tembe Trio. I can get behind this because, guys, today on this day, we are men. Get yourself a tie rack. Stop being a slob. Maximize the size of your closet. Be economical for it. 2 for 20. So it's 20 ties are held with 2. So you're holding 40 for only $8.99. Do it. Tembe's tie rack on Amazon for $8.99. Free shipping. You have Prime. Good job, Bezos. Promo code manhood.
I might actually need you to send me a link to that.
It's on the screen. It's on the screen right now.
All right.
If you look back on this episode, you'll find it.
All right, and then I'll wrap up here. This is kind of a group non-sponsor, but I want to give a shout out to FIU.
Again?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, wait. FIU, the Miami Marlins, and
Again?
FAU.
Okay. All 3.
Yep, for... and I'll add in Conference USA. Well, no. I've covered FIU and Miami already, so
right.
Let me cover FAU and Conference USA. That was a blast being able to cover the CUSA championship game. They had a media dinner the night before, which was really cool. It was over at a place near the stadium up in Boca. Like a sports bar almost, like an upscale sports bar. They covered our tab. It was a lot of fun. I got to meet fellow journalists, although they're much more professional than I am. And what was the name of the restaurant? Goodness.
They definitely didn't take you to a Duffy's, that's for sure.
It was not a Duffy.
A little overrated, by the way. And it might be blasphemous for me saying that here in South Florida, but Duffy's is a little overrated. A little overrated. Not the best sports bar. I mean, there's some places I'd rather go to. Flanagan's for sure.
Okay, so the name of the restaurant we went to is called Sammy J's Restaurant. If you want to pull that up on screen. And additional shout out to them. They had their service was very nice. It was a very nice restaurant, opened this year, and the servers were very nice. Overall, this was just a heck of a lot of fun covering the game. All the festivities involved. I got a free Conference USA T-shirt.
Nice.
And a free wristband from them. So, that was... I don't know. I can't say... I'm trying to stall so you can pull up Sammy J's.
It's on the screen there already, dude. It's already on the screen. I have it here.
Well, it's a delay.
Okay.
So there you go. You can see right there, Sammy J's. It's right near the Boca Raton Airport.
That's a pretty swanky place.
Yeah. Right near the Boca Airport, right near FAU Stadium, right off of I-75?
I-95.
I-95, thank you. So, yeah, that was a lot of fun. Andrew's a swanky man. Thank you very much, Charles. I like to think that I am, and that's why I need to go and get that tie rack so I can increase my swankiness. So, yeah, it was a hell of a lot of fun. I am hoping to be able to cover some of the South Florida Bowl games. There's two. You've got the Cheribundi Boca Raton Bowl, which is up at FAU Stadium.
Which is a FAU home game, BT Dubs.
Correct. FAU is playing SMU. And then you've got the... Who sponsors the Orange Bowl now? Is it still FedEx?
Capital One.
Capital One, thank you. Capital One Orange Bowl, and that is, as we mentioned, that's Florida, Virginia. I'm hoping to be able to cover that one as well. But if not, this was a hell of a lot of fun being able to cover games this year. Really tickles my journalism bone, which I've missed quite a lot since I've transitioned into a lawyer career. So yeah, that's my non-sponsor is a trio of Florida Atlantic University, the Conference USA, and Sammy J's Restaurant.
Okay. You have a promo code?
Promo code
Swanky?
Swanky. It's Swanky Andrew. Swanky Andrew.
Okay. Alrighty. So
go ahead.
I don't know who was speaking. Charles?
I laughed.
Oh, okay. Okay. I mean, that's probably it, guys. We are at the 2-hour mark. So we'll probably have to end it here. And Andrew, you know what? You should close, man. You led this whole show. You should close it, man.
All right. So I know that we didn't. This was kind of an unusual episode since we discussed all college, but we will likely be going back to our regularly scheduled programming next week. But I had a lot of fun with this. It tickled my CFB bone. A lot of bones have been tickled this past week.
Don't take that out of context.
Phrasing. So yeah, this was a lot of fun. I hope you guys had fun with it too. I hope you learned something. This is kind of like an extended learn a goof episode, I suppose.
Oh yeah, I had a ton of fun, and yeah, this is we'll hopefully be back the same time, either Tuesday or Wednesday next week.
Absolutely. So once again, for JD and Lucas, thanks again to them for sitting in and really college level learn a goof, exactly. For really making the show, they added so much to it. So thanks to them, and then on behalf of JD and Lucas, on behalf of Francisco, or no, I'll let you guys sign out for yourselves. What am I talking about?
Okay, so all right, guys. So thank you very much, and I guess we'll see you next week.
Thanks for being around. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.